Today we're continuing our quest of making completely pointless yet relatable content, so let me ask you this question. Have you ever wondered what character archetypes numbers would be if they were part of a narrative, if they were personified, if they were part of a story? I'm sure you haven't, but I've given it some thought, and I've come to some conclusions that I will share with you today. So I present to you Numbers, the series. Do you get it? It was a double entendre. It was like math series and then like story series. Anyway, Numbers, the series. Now every story needs a strong, relatable, likable protagonist, and that's where we would start if there wasn't a stupid fucking character we had to cover first, the self-insert Zero. Now Zero is dummy glazed by the author. It has the ability to create and destroy anything. You know exactly the type of character, like bro, hop off, you're doing tricks on Zero. I'm not gonna hold you, when I first started thinking of this idea, I was like, damn, Zero's actually a really cool number, it really can do anything, and then I started thinking, like, dude, give some fucking space for the other numbers. We get it. You're Zero. You're cool. In fact, you were created after single digits, but you were retconned to be the protagonist of the prequel series. Like, dude, Zero fans, I know exactly what you're like. You like the cool character that can do no wrong. The Gary Stews, the Mary Sues. No. Zero would be the character in the story that when they're talking about the legends of old, they'd be like, Zero, the god of numbers. But doesn't have that much aura because surprise Pikachu face. Let me tell you, when I write Zero colon, and I've done that a bunch in this slide deck, it just doesn't look that cool. But if we're thinking about personifying Zero, I feel like Zero would always be wearing drip. It'd be wearing like some fucking cosmic robes, always in a different color whenever you see it. It is the protagonist in the prequel, like I mentioned, but it sits in the shadows now, and it is unwilling to accept number one's ideologies. Which segues us perfectly into number one, the hero of the story, the protagonist. Number one is super strong, but it's a jack of all trades. While other numbers have niches, number one can just kind of do it all, but isn't an expert at anything. And then when you think about it, even if number one is not your favorite character, number one is just such a cool demeanor. We all love number one, and it gets stronger as the series progresses. The older you get, the more you realize, damn, number one is really that guy. But number one is not like a shonen protagonist. It's not a happy-go-lucky protagonist. There's a dark side to number one. It's relatable to other numbers because every other number can see a little bit of number one in itself. And while number one is the loneliest number, it changes by the end because its ideology is wanting the numbers to get along. And you might be thinking, damn, number one kind of sounds just as glazed as Zero. No, you idiot. Number one, the vibes are completely different. With Zero, I would never sit down and grab a beer because Zero would just talk about himself. Number one's chill. He's melancholy, he's a little lonely, but he's got friends, which segues us into the rival, number two. He's the deuteragonist, and he's more talented than one to start. If I had to put it in numbers terms, number one would be version 1, and number 2 would be version 2. Do you know what I'm saying? But when thinking about the personality of the rival, I feel like he would be quite cocky, a character that knows about its latent power. It's like, yeah, there's a number system based on me, but it has quite a few character flaws, including that it struggles with odd people. Like, it was always so talented, everything always came so easily that it struggles to relate to the odd ones. That being said, it is still best friends with number one, and though it doesn't trust 3 fully, it is still very happy to be part of the main trio of 1, 2, 3. And the last thing I can say about number 2 is that I feel like it's just a straight up beautiful number. Like when people see 2 walking down the street, ironically, you're like, damn, that's at least an 8. The next number we're talking about is the troubled one, 3. It is part of the main trio with 1 and 2, but it can't fully connect with the 2. It is very cocky and pretentious, much more than 2, and it is straight up a douche. This is because it has been put on a pedestal its entire life due to some royal blood, royal descent. Because I'm gonna keep it a buck with you, 3 hasn't really ever done anything to prove itself. It's a little bit of a nepo baby, but regardless, the audience, the people in universe are like, damn, 3 is fucking sick, we love aura, we love hype. But why? Why 3? It's not as versatile as number 1, it's not as strong as number 2, and after 1 and 2 surpass it, I feel like it uses the dark arts. In fact, it reneges against the light side, and uses its popularity to gain strength. It has a very tumultuous relationship with other numbers, which makes it an interesting character to the audience, and I feel like it is probably slightly homophobic, which is interesting because it looks like both ass and titties. Next up, we've got the ultimate side character, number 4, and I know what some of you are thinking. I'm sorry, 4 fans, all 3 of you, but it's a good person, it provides comic relief, it's willing to put its life on the line, but it just doesn't do that much. Listen, I personally love 4, it's just not as memorable as the numbers we've covered so far, but that's okay, every narrative needs a number like this, and while it does look funny, it has a strange design, it somehow works, and it has an absolutely banger arc during the series at some point, and then is basically never touched again. Which brings me to number 5, a minor antagonist of the series. He's a big guy with a beer belly and an imposing presence. Think Kingpin. He is the first big hurdle that the characters have to face, and he definitely uses racial slurs. Just look at him. Come on, you see it. So yeah, definitely dubious moral characteristics. I feel like he gives mafioso sleazebag vibes, and while he seems challenging to start, he's really a one-trick pony, and once they figure him out, easy peasy. I mean, like, what can 5 really do? Think about it. And then we move on to the love interest, Sex. It is the younger sibling to 9, and while it is weaker and wimpier than all the other numbers, it makes up for it with its looks. I'm just kidding, that's vain, and vanity is lame. But it's also true. It's just beautiful. I mean, yes, it is weak and wimpy, and I don't want this story to sound cliche with a damsel or gentleman in distress, but like, what does 6 really do? Think about it. Not a whole lot. It's not as important as 3, it's not as powerful as 9, but it would be intelligent, trusting, and kind. This video is so dumb. And then we get to this motherfucker, the famous one, 7. It is known all over the world. I feel like it has luscious, flowing blonde hair, and it's either like a cowboy or a gunslinger. You know exactly what I'm talking about when it comes to 7. And I feel like 7 is another cocky character. It would have dumbass lines like, looks like 7's lucky again. Anyway, 7 is part of a trio with 8 and 9. It is famous for those exploits, the legendary single-digit numbers, and it is formerly the most talented number. That is, after the new main trio is born and they surpass the old generation. Now, it does defect, it becomes the primary antagonist of the series, and people like it really due to its aura and because it looks cool with its fucking blonde hair. But like, come on, what has 7 really done? Like, honestly. Moving on to the comic relief, we've got number 8. It is also part of the legendary trio, but it really just fucking sucks. It has exploits and stories, but when the characters actually do meet it, it's a complete and total pushover, not what they were expecting at all. I feel like 8 has those comically large glasses that make its eyes look huge, and for some reason I just feel like it's clumsy, maybe because it's a bigger, curvier number, and it uses its enemies' fear of infinity against them, even though it has fucking nothing to do with infinity, but it works. It's a typical trope of people think it's powerful, but it's not powerful at all, but we still love it because it's interesting character dynamics-wise. It's just kind of there. Not in the story too much, but let's move on to number 9, the Mentor. Now, while I did say that 7 was the most talented before, I feel like the most capable and the strongest ended up being number 9 due to hard work itself. It is cocky, it is annoying, it knows that it's the shit, it's the number before 10. And because of that fact, because it's the largest number, everything it does is just way over the top. All of its moves are fucking huge, no stealth, but we love it. It has the tragic mentor trope, we all cry at death. It's because it dies to 7. It expected a betrayal from 7, but it didn't want to believe it. And in the end of the day, 7, 8, 9. And there you have it. Those are holy shit. There's one more number. The Void. 0. The actual main villain of the series. Now, even though it is the actual main antagonist of the series and nobody saw this plot twist coming, it is still incredibly glazed and bro needs to fucking hop off. Like, 0, you're not that guy. I don't know why I'm becoming such a 0 hater all of a sudden, but just roll with it. So 7 is the major antagonist of the series, but once they manage to defeat 7, it takes 1, 2, and 3 to defeat 0 after it reveals itself as the Void. Even though one of them dies, 3 does join the good side again. If I'm being honest, 2 is probably the dying one. When we were talking about 7, you might have been asking yourself, wait, why did 7 become evil? Well, it's because of the Void. It took advantage of its cocky personality, and it showed it power that it's never seen before, and it has a hard time losing due to the author constantly fucking glazing all of its powers. Like, we get it, dude. Multiplication is OP, division is fucking OP, everything you can do, just get off my screen, 0. But while it was an interesting villain, it unfortunately signals the end of the first season, and honestly, this is really the only good season of Numbers, the series. And really, this is where we stop talking about numbers because I don't want to cover the spin-off seasons. They just don't hit the same, to be honest. Like, take season 2, for instance. It's just ass. It's repetitive. The numbers have, like, no characterization compared to season 1. And don't even get me started on season 3. Like, why do we need nega numbers? Nega. Like, they don't even add any additional characterization to the original numbers. They just make things more confusing. I mean, at some point, the writers must have gotten so bored because in farther out seasons, they made, like, a crossover with the letters, and the letters just stayed there forever. Like, what the fuck, number, man? And don't get me wrong, there's some really cool letters. Like, X, dude, super mysterious, super auriful, but, like, E and I, that's just way too over the top. I feel like we lost the plot here. Anyway, strange tangent, strange video, but that was numbers as characters for some reason. Let me know what you think. Do you disagree? Do you agree? What would you change? What's your favorite number and why? Someone should make a series. We should get the Mappa animators to do this while they're working on everything else that they have to do. Sounds like a good use of their time. If you enjoyed this video, please consider liking and subscribing. It was definitely a little schizo, but let's just say that makes it more relatable and charming. If you have any suggestions for future videos, please let me know down below as well. You are looking decent today, but decent for you is a 10 out of 10. See ya. Goodbye.